In this video I want to share with you some super cool sequencing concept that is actually based on some drumming technique, and before showing you how you can apply this to your own setup, let's listen to some examples. All of those patterns are basically combinations of left hand and right hand strokes, and I feel like it sounds pretty funky to play melodies this way. And again, you don't need to drum those figures, you can also simply use a MIDI grid or those tiny pads on a MIDI controller or also your sequencer. You can see that I never play more than 2 strokes per hand, creating alternating figures between left and right, and in drumming language you call those figures rudiments, and it's like some basic vocabulary like scales for piano players, for example. And what makes it so interesting to apply those patterns to melodies is that on a piano you would simply never compose that way, it would feel super awkward. Now, those examples from the intro were a little advanced already, so let's take a step back and check out the mother of all rudiments called the paradiddle. Here I have some MIDI grid, and you can simply start by choosing one tone for right and one tone for left, and the paradiddle looks like this: right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, and then you basically do the same again. And although it's a very simple 2-note melody, I really enjoy the flow somehow based on this drum rudiment. And you can then start just adding some variations, so maybe changing a couple of pitches, to just make sure that those double strokes you always move as a duo, so you don't break the system. So now, for example, I ended up with this sequence. This is just the foundation, because now you can start experimenting, and one thing I really like is to mute individual tones, so you just select a whole row of notes and mute it, because you get some very musical and interesting gaps. Another super fun thing is to experiment with the loop selection, because if you duplicate the clip, you have it actually twice, and then you can just select one bar and move the loop selection to the next position. So we listen to it now with the second 16th note as the first note, and usually you get some super funky rhythms. Or let's try the third position. And what I can also recommend to try out is to send your sequence into a pad sound. So here I have something called 80s pad with a very long attack, like 3 seconds. And because of the long attack, the sound has a very hard time dealing with all the notes. But sometimes, I mean, not with every sound, but here it actually worked really nicely. You get some cool ambient texture. Now, the real fun part comes in if you create those patterns yourself, which is also how I created those sequences from the intro. And it's fairly simple, because the only rule that needs to be applied is that you have either 1 or 2 in a row. So this would not be possible. You need to go back here, and then you can actually do this until whatever structure you want to use is full. In this case, it would be a 2-bar loop. I like to use something more systematic though, because if you use particular groups of notes consciously, you can create more rhythmic tension and also a more kind of systematic compositional rhythmic sound, so it doesn't sound only random. And I like to use odd groups like 5 or 7, for example. So a typical group in 5 would be, let's say, right, left, right, right, left. And then you just do this a couple of times until the whole bar, or actually those 2 bars are full, and the thing repeats itself. I was choosing some higher interval now so you can hear the rhythmic effect more clearly. Really like those patterns. We can vary it here. And you can apply the same techniques we used before, so here's some example with just more tones. And again, we can duplicate the clip and play around with the position. Actually, it should be super fun as well with patterns like this. This one I like. And there's always this great rhythm trick that you can try. If you start with a sequence like this without the kick, the listener will most likely be kind of confused where the one is, and then at some point to bring in the kick and kind of resolve the rhythm. And I feel like this technique has so much potential. I was just showing you a glimpse. I mean, you can apply this to any types of sounds, scales, rhythms. However, it can also feel a little intimidating maybe, which is why I want to share some sequence pack I created with you. It's called Human Arpeggiator and it's basically a collection of around 250 MIDI sequences humanly played by myself with my Nordstrom 3P drum pad. So you can use my human touch, you can also quantize it if it doesn't fit your music, that's totally possible. And you can apply all those techniques I've shared with you in this video to those sequences. So they are basically a starting point for you to make something more unique out of them, or of course you can also simply use them the way they are. The link is down below in the description, and otherwise you're warmly invited to check out this video here with some cool sequencing trick inside Ableton Live directly inspired by my Performer. Apart from that, I wish you lots of inspiration with whatever it is that you create and hope to see you soon again at this channel. Bye!